answering questions, direct, helping out, making an impact instead of just teaching and then you leave and then do you remember the slides? How do I help you guys out right now? It's easier. We can accomplish two things with one setting. So that's our goal. So things during the week, certain things to read when we're going through, if it could be leveraged to a weekly where you have me, happy to answer any types of questions, deal related, you know what I mean, different things. It's day to day, it's certain things that are urgent needs, but think training wise, we can pack it. I want to give everything I possibly can to everybody here. I want you guys to all learn, earn, and make a difference. Real estate, rewired. We are focused today on underwriting simplified, and that's going to be a huge thing. We were just talking to everybody here about getting that going. What does that look like? It looks like a number of things. It's so complex, Bruce. What is an underwriting? The words I don't know. What's going on? I'm coming in to bring it to you guys in such a simple format that you can institute it in your businesses right now and understand it at a very simple level. In this way, you'll grow it into something much larger if you want, or maybe you just want to own a bunch of real estate, or you want to be educated in helping a buyer accomplish their real estate goals. No better than if you're practicing what you preach and you do it yourselves as well, because then you have that high level conviction. You also have the practicing knowledge, the technical skill combined. It's a winning formula for you guys. All right. So today we're going to deep dive mixed use underwriting, what that looks like, multifamilies, developments, and kind of how all three of those are in the same bucket virtually. So we're going to unpack that today. All right, guys, right on the table on the top, navigating the underwriting process. You see that there's 7 different stair levels here. We're going to extract all of that into a very simple formula for you guys. All right, most people think underwriting is complicated. It's not, because it's really just math, logic, it's income and expenses, and it's understanding money. So moving ahead, what are we going to do? We're going to learn underwriting. We're going to frame around what the underwriting boxes of everything that we have today are. What that looks like is the 3 that we just discussed. It's your income, it's your expenses, and then a cap rate valuation. When we're talking yesterday, talking to 3 of our business partners, we're understanding, how do you value real estate, right? Well, there's 3 ways to value commercial real estate. Write this down, guys. There's the price per square foot, i.e., if the building is vacant, if there's an owner user that's leaving and selling the building, well, you're selling a shell. It's a price per square foot typically in that, or maybe development. But again, these are where you start. So think price per square foot, highly utilized in vacant buildings, buildings that are going vacant, etc. Think income and expense. You see a building, you got the big sign on there, and all of a sudden the customers are walking in and out. Guys, that might be an income and expense. So you have a price per square foot, an income and expense. And then the third one is dirt to dollars. That's one of the ones that we untap different from most agents and brokers in the marketplace. We do it at a high level because we understand it. I'm here to teach you guys how to understand that and untap it in your marketplaces throughout the entire United States. Because what we have is a huge opportunity. We don't have enough housing, guys. Plain and simple. It's just the bottom line. It's not there. If you guys get the concept here, providing housing will allow you a huge opportunity in real estate. And I say that, and I'm passionate about it because I believe it. Guys, when we're down 500,000 homes in New Jersey, you imagine what the rest of the United States looks like? COVID, stalled approvals. We were on Zooms. I'm sitting with Jason on Zooms in other states trying to configure where we're at with approvals, pushing meetings. It happened. So we're underpopulated with housing. Now, what does it do when we build a ton of housing? It creates more competitive pricing. So it's not like you just build luxury product. You build tons of product that fit different neighborhood standards, which allow you to have choice and options in the marketplace. So instead of having those pricings just go huge and skyrocket with inflation, we start leveling them off. And that's what we're talking about. But how does that accomplish? How is that accomplished? It's accomplished through underwriting, the fancy word underwriting. And that's what we're going to talk about. What's the value of the rentals? What's the typical expenses? What's left over? And then how do we value the building on what's left over? And that's what we're diving into today. So, goal of underwriting is about understanding the cash flow of a commercial property, not about being perfect. Guys, I say that in there because I think it's kind of comedy. Yes, you want to be as accurate as you can, but let's say you hit small metrics that are not big rocks. It's not going to affect you. Over time, research has shown you own real estate, you own properties. Those little things that you were so concerned with early on, or that clients were, ultimately are not even items of concern when you go look back years later. It's wild, but you have to have that experience. So I'm trying to transfer the knowledge to you guys on that experience so you guys can understand what it looks like and then transact. Because they're going to believe it when they look in your eyes and you know they know that you know, and everything circles around. So by mastering them, its core principles, you're going to show other people that you differentiate yourself in the marketplace. Now, cash flow analysis, that's what we're all gearing to. We talk about this. I was just going through with the team. There's certain understandings of metrics and marks that you're going to want to know. Let's go ahead and dive into what those look like. So the big 5 metrics, we got NOI, cap rate, the DSCRs, the cash on cash and IRR. Those are the big 5. Now, where do we take evaluation on? We take it on cap rate. And most people in the marketplace, they're going to say, oh, what's the cap? What's the cap? That's because it's a pretty common word for asset in terms of an investment sale. How much return? Now, best thing about real estate I learned is that once you own property, these lease values, they differ and they go up. And then all of a sudden you have higher securities and there's some pet fees and then there's other things that pad the income to be pretty good. So I encourage you guys that when you start looking into these things, there's other items that we're going to dive into. So NOI is simply the income minus the expenses. You're left over a number. You divide the number by the cap rate. So it's a very simple process. This right here gives you X amount of income. You have X amount of expenses. You have a number. That number, divide the number in our marketplace just by 0.06. So go ahead and do that now. Take a property that you own right now yourself, or you have a listing on or something, and then take the number of what the cash flow is after the expenses, divide it by 0.06. You now have a baseline as to kind of where this value could be, up, down, and all around, but right there. So if you do that, boom, valuation. So that's based on NOI. Your second is your cap rate. Your value is your NOI divided by your cap rate. Now, what is that doing? It's the same thing we just did in NOI, except doing it in a different formula. So I did get to 6th grade math and I did pass it. And what I did learn when I started doing that was you can move these around on the equation. So do it yourselves too. I didn't understand these things, but it's the reality of what happens. So when you look at it, you say, oh, that's the same thing as this, except different. So if you have 2 of the 3 components, you can get the third. So yes, you have to understand a couple of checkbox items of input data, but if you do that, you can do it quickly and understand what the value is. So NOI, cap rate. Cap rate's based on the return. Now, always remember, people go into it, and we'll go into this a little bit later in the slides, your vacancy costs, guys. Somebody says, oh, here's the income, here's the expenses, and all of a sudden this is the property value. I get it all the time from agents in our office. They don't calculate a vacancy cost in there. But here's the deal. As much as you and I agree that there is no vacancy, and as much as you and I will agree that it's income that's generated with a ghost expense, I call it. It's a ghost expense because it's not there if it's fully occupied. But the catch is that the bank's not going to lend you money without it. You follow? So it's a do if you don't, do if you do, right? So you have to be able to communicate this. So when somebody says, here's your income, here's your expenses, and they say to you, well, you didn't calculate a vacancy cost, they're right. Now, if we calculate a vacancy cost, we then speak on it. And let's say the property is 100% occupied, that extra 5% goes back in your pocket, or 3% in our marketplace. 3% we can justify. Dory, what do you got? Yeah, in northern New Jersey, you can allow for 3%. Banks know these properties, they fly off the market for a rental. Somebody's always, there's a butt for the seat, matter of pricing. Good question. DSCR, that's your debt service coverage ratio. In our area, 1.22. It's the bank's way of hedging and saying, hey, 22% virtually over the 100% is what we want. Because if it goes vacant or if there's any issues, that little extra juice we got can kind of pay it off. So if there's a stumble in between for a month or 2 months, the bank's kind of hedging on the fact that they got some extra income and you can pay it. So when you look at it like that, it's your NOI divided by the annual debt payments, boom, and that'll give you it. So when we look at cash flow, if you have all 5 of this on the analysis, any investor, any person that's looking at purchasing a seller will say, you know what you're doing. If the numbers are accurate, these are the only metrics that you need. Simple metrics. So strip everything down. If you've ever received it to me with a high financial analysis, strip it down to just these 5. So if you do that and you communicate the way that I'm seeking in 2026 to be communicating as if I am a 10-year-old, Because if I am communicating as a 10-year-old, I'm doing a really good job. That's the way that we want to teach, because that's implementable in all of your businesses right now. Cash on cash return. This tells you how fast your money works, guys. It's literally that. My father years ago taught me the rule of 7, the 7 years in doubling based on cap rate. So again, what are your rules of thumb? That was that. It's your annual cash flow divided by the total cash invested. You get a cash on cash return. A good way to do these that over time you just kind of cement in your brain is flashcards. If you ever went to real estate school, you guys got your real estate licenses, everyone knew flashcards, right? If you do these in financial metrics, if anyone sees me or sees my studying, my office area and all that, you'll see a lot of that. Because over time, you just keep going, you have to learn new materials. These materials take very short spurts of concentration to lock yourselves in. So if you do that and you commit to it, the 15-minute a rule day, which means 15 minutes every single day, you're gonna be ahead of 85+% of the people out there. So if you just commit to something small long term, you'll be much more quickly ahead in 1 year than anyone else will be without any actual hard concerns. Right? So know those rules. Your IRR, your internal rate of return, it's your total return over the lifetime. What does that look like internally from year one all the way out? And how do we go about that with this investment property? It's long-term metric. Moving forward from the big five, we just calculated, we have NOI, we have cap rate, we have the DSCR, your cash on cash, and IRR. Those are the big five. If you have those in there, you're off to a really good start. Let's keep moving ahead. Rent roll breakdowns. Guys, understand that there's going to be 5 other things here that we want to just double check and understand with regards to mixed use multifamilies, because it'll be important. It'll be the difference of knowing whether or not you can rent the unit that's in there at a higher number, knowing if it's a rent stabilized area and what's the increase in the percentage that you seek. Is it 3%, 5%, 6%? Can you put money into the town, invest into that unit, and then get a reduction or get an increased percentage? Maybe, maybe not. In our towns, guys, this is the conversation. And each one changes its laws differently. So I encourage everyone, this is where we just have to go a little granular each year. Requires us to do more work, but we're happy to do it because it's the area we live in. So what a rent roll includes. We're going to have to understand the rent roll minus everything there is not just the apartments or the storefronts or the office units. It's also the amenity fees, the pet fees, and the security deposits. Why? Because I've made transactions happen versus not happening based on this. And I say it because if you're getting pet fees and you know that 50% of the building's a pet related building, you got an extra $50 or $100 a month coming from a pet, that's a big difference. Now imagine you do that and you also have laundry upcharge. And imagine you do that and all of a sudden you have an amenity fee that covers all of the pool area. Well, then gross rent typically is a little bit easier, right? So there's that give and take. Or is it more? Maybe you have a primo location and it's so warranted. That's what I'm talking about there. Spotting below market
Could
rents.
you like potentially show the like difference in cost between one that has like little add-ons like that and
Yeah.
one that doesn't?
Yeah, great question, Adam. So let's go through this. So let's just do a simple one right here. Let's imagine that you had 4 unit. Or actually, no, let's do something. Yeah, let's do. No, I'm going to do the 10 unit on Garibaldi. 10 unit. So 10 units. Now, if you have 10 units of income, let's say each one is just $2,000 a month. Okay. What does that equal per month? There we go. All right. And then what does that equal per year? 240,000. Okay. Now, let's say that each one of these, you now have a security deposit. So 1.5 months. That equals 20,000 1 month. Exactly. 0.5, 10,000, 30,000, right? So that's an extra $30,000 right there. Now it's security, so it's held and it's separate, but it's income in the account. Tenants destroy something, put the money in, you put it to use, right? Justify it and send it out. So again, income in the account for where you're at. Let's just say now there's parking, and let's say that 10 unit has 6 parking spots. At $100 a spot. That equals $600 a month. Okay. Now, let's say that there was an amenity fee. Let's say that there was a barbecue area back there. And let's say that that barbecue area you rented to the ground floor tenant for $100 a month. Okay, and let's say that of the 10 units, 7 units had pets at $50 each one. 50 times 7, 350. So when we start looking at this, let's say that's capped at everything. Now we have 2,000 a month for the units, 20,000. We now have the security injected of 30,000. Okay. We also now have added the $600 parking. Yeah, 7,200. My apologies. Thank you. Okay, and then can you do the 350 as well? So we got 1,200 for the barbecue. And this is for pets. Okay. So we have 27, 31, 32 for 32,600. Well, the 30 we don't count. We keep it in there because the reason why I say that is because when you have the security deposits, that's strength. You follow me? It's not usable income, it's strength. And it's strength because you're protecting yourself against the tenant. So it's a stronger cash flow. If you were to buy this building and there was no security deposits in place, isn't that more risky? That's why I'm saying it's like getting $30,000 because it's a protective measure instead of that. So use it to your advantage. That's why I share it. So 32.6. So let's just say this 32.6, they never calculated anything. What is 2,600 divided by 0.06? 43,000? 43,000. That's how much more the building's worth. Now, if you do this add another zero behind this. You follow me? That's $433,000. That's why I'm teaching this, is because understanding it's small leading to big. You know that on a bigger level could be the difference of a lot. So again, just something simple, but I'm sure every agent on this that's watching and in here is not going to the level of what this looks like. Now, if you're doing this for a value to a seller and you can say, we identify lease loss areas, you can share that, you can help them understand a higher number, which maybe gets them a better sale price.
And what kind of impact can that have on something like a cap rate? Like how much more appealing can that be to a potential buyer when they see something like that add on to the NOI?
I think clarity is key. If you have clarity, if you're able to explain this and then transfer the knowledge clearly, somebody's easier to receive it, which means they'll make a decision quicker and easier. But let's say that this was all miscombobulated and they didn't know, and it's maybe he pays, he doesn't, is that on his lease? I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. It kind of is like, wait, what's going on? Sometimes it happens, but when you have clarity around your rent roll, and that's where we have that, is your rent roll will always specify. We label it as reimbursements for triple net when it's CAM and other things, which we'll dive into. But on a rent roll, when certain things are had and you're in the marketplace, ask. These are the questions that you want to ask. You want to understand, how is this affecting you? Where's the income? Is there anything I'm not knowing? Oh yeah, you know what? I do rent the back of that to the one guy with the truck. He pays me $200 a month. Well, that's part of the income. You follow? That's what we want to isolate and talk about. Okay. Looking at spotting below market rents, we call that lease loss factor. Guys, think if I'm having a lease and it's at $2,000 a month and it should be at $2,500 a month, that's a $500 lease loss factor. Big difference in the way it is. So if you know, hey, these are at 2,000 and there's 10 of them, and that's really 2,500, what does that look like? You follow me? An extra 500 on 10. That's huge. What does that look like? It looks like a lot of money on an NOI. That's how you start doing real estate investment sales. That's how these buyers are looking at it. They want to see it. Otherwise, it's local, mom and pops. They just want to buy something, own a few units, and that's fine. They're not as driven in this regard, but it doesn't mean that that's our clientele. It means you're going to get both, but educate more, because attorneys, professionals, all of those people, those are the ones that we're defending against. All right. So lease rollover risk. Guys, where's this building headed? Is this building going to crap, or is this thing going into a better area? Is there development around? What's going? Where's the trends? That's what I'm talking about, because you want to be able to sell that story. Next up is our CAM. It's recoveries and escalations. Guys, CAM is common area maintenance. When we have a building and you have something that's leasing, selling, you need CAM charges. What does it do? It flows to the tenants in a proportion to the amount of square footage or what they're using. So what does that look like? 746 Tunnelly, an example, triple net lease. The operator of the business is going to have the property as if they own and operate it themselves. So they're going to pay the taxes. They're going to pay the insurance, snow removal. They're going to pay anything outside of what we label as common elements. So write that down, common elements that a landlord will then have. Maybe the landlord's responsible for the shell or the roof. Tenant improves it all interior and exterior, but that's it. Maybe they have the storm water, and they have all the different areas that they have to take care of, where there's this random septic and it's powered there in the owner. It's a negotiation. So understand, those are those CAM charges, but what are they called? Their OPEX is operating expenses yearly. So those are recoverable on a triple net basis, which we've taught in a different class. And that's going to be something with regards to commercial leasing you want to jump into. And then obviously red flags in the rent roll. We look for leaks in the boat, guys. That's going to be something that if you see something, say something, i.e. if you see that the building has, 7 pets in it and nobody's paying pet fees. Let's say it has the parking spaces and nobody's paying parking fees. You want to suggest, would you be open to making more money on the building or restructuring leasing to add more value? That's what we're talking about when we say, what does it look like? Dive into that. Those are key red flags, because if you isolate leaks in the boat, you can solutionize. And if you solutionize, then all of a sudden you're going to get somebody to agree with you. They're going to look at you, know what you're saying what you know, and then all of a sudden, boom, you go on to selling that building or buying it yourself. Okay, good so far on rent roll breakdowns? Okay, so we did our live pro forma, and we got to it a little bit sooner than I wanted to. But Adam, great question. We went through this. Guys, what we have is where we're at with our 5-step rule. Start with your current rents, project your rent bumps, add vacancy factor, calculate your expenses, and then know what the NOI is, because then you have a value on the building. So if we're going to go and you're going to list with us and we were going to see where's the value in this building, what I would do is isolate what these look like, quantify this, make sure, and same thing, you guys in the marketplace, you want to know these items, and say we can probably get, maybe if this building was 2.1 million, maybe you still get the 2.2 million, 2.2. Maybe you double that value for it and be able to try to sell it. That's when I talk about it, because that add value could be something that you can double the value at the end. Small numbers on here, but imagine the bigger numbers, every single penny and dollar in those count, because these go into the millions on these bigger deals. In terms of a stepping process, what you'd want to understand is just go from left to right here. Just literally left to right as you go down the continuum. If you understand those steps, you'll be able to quantify it. Again, just think very logical, simple words. How much income is in this property? How much expense is on the property? What's left over? That's it. If you guys heard anything today, think, if I know what is the income minus what the true expenses are, I have a value I can determine and I can sell a building on. That goes throughout the marketplace. And it virtually goes with anything. Imagine the signs that we have. I've watched generated signs for marketing be sold in that same format. Adam.
So You just emphasize like how important it is to find the true income and expense, but like what's the most effective way to figure that out if you have literally no idea about a property and you just found something or a property on like CoStar or Crexy and you kind of wanted to get accurate details. Um, is the landlord going to give you potentially accurate details, or do you trust that, or do you create your own pro forma to underwrite it? What's the solution there?
Yeah, good question. Create your own pro forma. Let's just start with a few very, very simple, basic expenses that you need to have on there. If they're not on there, chances are something's off. But if there's additional ones, you can jump in. Say, why is that there? Do I need it? Like IE, I'll give you a straight example. Some buildings, they come with Wi-Fi, security, video, and audio. Do you need that, or is that a want? You follow? I want it because it's good, but you don't need that. Those are where we're weighing risk of what's an expense versus not. Because yes, that could be an expense, but you know what? My guy's demolishing this and not going to even have that system in place. So what does that look like? That's what we're diving into. So expenses right out the gate.
Maybe erase that bottom section.
Yeah. Okay. So when we go expenses, first one that I look at is taxes. Second, insurance. This this is going to be maintenance, property. Property repair and maintenance. Guys, what does that look like? Boiler went. Something else went on the roof. Maybe you needed a sewer scope. Maybe termites were in there and you needed a treatment. Maybe rodents were, whatever that is, property repair and maintenance to run the property. I dump it into one bucket so it's simpler, but think it could have an itemized line of 3, 4 items. Okay. Next up after here, this is going to be common areas, i.e., are there common areas? Because here's the thing, on a 10 unit, if all those are exterior doors and there's no common area, you're pretty limited. It's going to be just snow removal and some other areas on professional landscaping, things like that, right? There's no hallways to heat and cool. There's no stairwells. There's no, yeah, exactly. Just you get it. No common area spaces. So think, is there common area or not? And if there is common areas, there's an expense associated with it. But if it's not, then you can kind of exit off of the list. There's a number of other ones. Once you get above, let's call it 10 units, there's management. I always say just look for CAM charges, common area maintenance. And what does that look like outside of this? Repair and maintenance. This is just going to be common area stuff. Like, is there any Wi-Fi, video, audio? Is there an elevator? Elevators are a big expense, 3, 4, 5 grand. Could be multiple elevators, in terms of that. So these are why I don't want to go vague because each one is different. But if you understand the buckets, you can put them into different categories and ask good questions for that. So, for our purposes, especially 1 to 10 million range that we're focused on, what we want to understand is taxes, insurance, property, repair, maintenance across the board. Any common areas? Is there a management fee associated? And then anything else like Wi-Fi, video, audio, elevator, things like that outside. That would be the best way. If you have those, probably pretty accurate, or maybe there's 1 or 2, but there's nothing that's going to sidewind you. All right, so moving ahead. Your turn. I want to do live. I want you guys to calculate 123 Main Street, 456 Oak Ave, and 789 Elm Road, and tell me what the purchase price and the NOI and what the cap rate is. So you got 2 of the 3. Give me the first one, 123 Main Street. Purchase price is 105. NOI is 150,000. What's the cap rate on this? Bingo. So now give me the price if it was at a 6 cap. Anybody? So 2.5 is correct. Now give it to me at a 7 cap. Yep, accurate. All right. So you understand that, Dory. Everybody else figuring where this is, because this is the simple way for you guys to immediately cut through all the red tape and get right to answers. If you're working with investors, I hear people, I work with an investor, I work with a builder, I work with a, that's great. I love that. That's what we want. But why don't you drill in a couple of questions and go from E to P, entrepreneurial hopes and dreams, to purposeful in terms of your approach. You'll flush the person out or you'll advance them, because what you have is not enough time, guys. Bottom line, you don't have enough time to waste, because if you focused on the top clientele, the other ones will just say, you know what, I'm not ready yet, and they're not going to raise their hand to work with you. They're going to waste somebody else's time, and then all of a sudden, what I've realized research has shown, then they come to the professionals ready after they've exhausted all the others. It's a scary thing to say, but it's truthful in the marketplace. You're getting run down by other individuals, and then they're transacting with other brokers. So yeah. So yeah, I just had it right here on the top. So income minus expense equals NOI, value equals NOI divided by cap rate. All right. So let's go and run through 8 common underwriting mistakes. Guys, overestimating your rent growth, underestimating your expenses, not including reserves, using wrong cap rates, forgetting vacancy factors, assuming perfect tenants, miscalculating your DSCRs, and then believing broker pro formas. Mind blowing, right? Let's dive into all 8 of those right now, because these are the common mistakes and these are things that we want to solutionize for. Fair enough? Wonderful. Guys, overestimating rent growth. When we start talking about it, projecting unrealistic rent increases that can lead to inflated NOI and skewed valuations. Don't do it. Opt against it. Look at the marketplace. Price per square foot of the average from residential market trends, add 15% for new construction. Underwriting expenses. Failing to account for all operating expenses such as taxes, maintenance, repairs, utilities distort your property's value, i.e. what we just reviewed and went over. Just understanding your expenses. Don't underestimate. Not including reserves. Guys, banks could include interest reserves for your property because they're not hitting certain metrics that allow you not to hit the certain metrics, which means they want income, they want to have reserves. Just understand it may be there. Buyer doesn't know that. You don't know that. Could be hit with a check and you're asking for a closing number. All of a sudden, you've got interest reserves. Know what that is in advance. Using the wrong cap rates. In our marketplace, I have people come in, they call me, Bruce, I'm looking at buying it. I got all this huge portfolio, thousands of units, da da da. Can you help me? Oh, you sound like a great client, somebody that's one of my successful ones that we've transacted with. Wonderful. Talk to me about cap rates, price per square foot. How do you buy? Oh, Bruce, we buy 10% and above. I don't care how many units you own. I don't care what happens in our marketplace. That ain't happening. 9%. Do you guys want to be able to get your rent? In terms of the risk reward, high risk in our area for that. 8%, 7%, until you get to around 6%. At 6%, it starts becoming reasonable. You go lower than that, typically it's very much new construction product. In prime areas, once you get into the 4s. And then once you get a little above 6, your market rate areas, areas that you need a little turnover, maybe a lease loss factor, you can improve some of the rents, and or to the best areas where, it inverses. So know that going out, using the wrong cap rate. So in Northern New Jersey, 6 to 7%, pretty standard. Adam.
So how do you get like unbiased, like rent growth projections, like based off of comps? Like when you're looking at these comps
Residential or commercial?
Commercial.
Commercial is pretty standard. 2 to 4%, 3% is like a standard formality of where we transact. If you can get 4 or 5%, or maybe you get 10 or 12, that might be where you see CVS, Walgreens, Nationals. They do leases in 5-year tranches. When we did the last one, it's better for us to escalate yearly. So take 3% as a standard across the board for knowledge purposes and execution. Good question. Questions outside of that for there? Good. All right. So, guys, forgetting vacancy factor. One of the big ones. I did it early on. Banks are going to do it. It's going to be where the value of the loan is obtained. That's where it's key. So if it runs through with a vacancy factor and scans through as boom, 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 bingo, you're good. Because that means that on top of that, they're only padded income. So it's only more favorable. Assuming perfect tenants, guys, I can tell you this right now, no tenant's perfect. But also at the same time, there's a lot of great ones. So if you get stuck with the misery one in your past experience, like when you drank a cup of coffee and it's burning hot and it burned the shit out of your tongue, it's not like you don't ever drink another cup of coffee. But most people you meet that have had a bad experience in real estate with a tenant never want to rent it out again. I'd encourage you to think differently, because what you did was let down your criteria and your standard of tenant into somebody with an emotional set that attached you and sold you. And that's what we've seen, what research has shown. So if you just stick to some criterias and don't assume they're perfect, but assume guardrails with them, you're fine. Next, miscalculating DSCR. When I know doing calculations on financial analysis, if I don't hit the DSCR, there's no shot that you're going to get the loan. Because why? You don't have the bank's blessing. If the bank's going to say we're going to value this $1 million asset at 880 because we didn't have enough income to show, guys, that's where you got to untap more income, because then the bank's more favorable to lend more, and your DCR SR rate is higher, and everything is easier to transact, which leads to a happy sale for the seller and buyer. Why do you think commercial is so challenging in so many ways? It's because you have to know all of this. The attorneys are not doing this job, guys. We're in an area, the attorney says to me, Bruce, figure it out. What do you mean? Why are you being paid? I have to figure this out? Damn, I got to get a lot smarter. That's what we have to do. Because if you know this, you end up doing most of the attorney's work. Even though they're legal, they'll button it up. You've done all the negotiating at the highest level. So why aren't you doing this then for yourselves at that point? And that's what the shoes I want you guys to step into, which is once you're doing this in real life, in practice with others, you're going to want to do it yourself. And if you're doing it yourself and you get one, you get two, what does your career and your life and your family look like? That's what I keep sharing, because that's going to change it, make the biggest impact out here. Believing broker pro formas. Guys, I don't know about you, but I haven't met too many brokers that are accurate in their pro formas. And you know, one of the best things ever was Jason had taught me accuracy in pro formas, because what I like to do is understand the sizzle, not the steak. But when it comes to accuracy of pro formas, I cut it out. You go dead facts on what you think rents are. It's why that they're received better. And Charlie and our ERG team, our plans, the way that we have our pro formas are more accurate than other people. Other people go by what a seller says or a landlord says. They have no factual data just because they're trying to get a listing. What I'm trying to do is actually rent or sell this property. And if that goes against what the seller or landlord's saying, I have to do this politely, educated, and polished. Otherwise, walk out the door. So if you can understand and know the common underwriting mistakes not to make, and believe those pro formas and share yes or no based on comps, chances are that you might even win that client. Adam.
Would you say it's more common for people to, like landlords, to undervalue their potential on a property, or overvalue?
Oh, I don't think I've ever met an owner that's undervalued their property to some degree outside of just maybe not caring or naiveness. Most people in our area are calculated, understand it, because they ask one or two people. People around them are smart. They usually come back if somebody wants to do something. That's great. What I love is that doing that in the residential world with a beat up house is pretty good. When you start getting into commercial world, there's a lot of bigger fish out here. We're a small little pond, small little fish in a large pond. These guys are going to come in, they're going to buy notes. They're going to buy 100 properties at a time. That's where it's changing. So what I see is a mix of both. I hope that answered that. All right, so believing broker performance, do it yourself. That's why I preach understanding education, understanding market trends. Best way to go about it. Yeah.
One thing is we just need 1 minute for Q&A.
Yeah.
We're running low on time.
Trying to run through as quickly as I can. So how developers underwrite, noted. So developers focus on yield, guys, exit strategy and sensitivity analysis with a threshold. When you understand threshold, you understand where they are. So developer analysis is typically 40%. They want to see returns on their money. So if I give $1 million, they want to see 40% on that. They want to be able to make roughly $1.4 million plus. So think of it as nationals. They go a little lower. They got to deploy capital. They got shareholders. They're at 25%. Okay. Then think sensitivity thresholds 15%. If the project can't make 15% in profit, nobody is doing it. Bottom line, there's no one that wants to risk a building to do it for less than this amount of money. So if you're a seller or you're a broker out there trying to do it and you run some numbers and they don't work, guys, don't keep selling it, because all you're doing is selling something that's unsellable. It's like selling a $28 gallon of milk. I don't know unless I'm absolutely have nothing to drink and the rest of the universe is gone before I buy that thing of milk. Would never. Moving ahead. Concluding, mastering underwriting is key to thriving in commercial real estate. Understanding these fundamentals will make your real estate career thrive. And I know that because it's something that we practice here. Watch everybody get smarter. We're doing more deals. Guys out. In the meantime, we're going to open it up to FAQ with Adam. I appreciate you guys listening and tuning in to Real Estate Rewired with underwriting as our focus today. I think that concludes it.
Yep. Just open for
Open floor
questions,
plan
and if you have a
questions,
question,
discussions,
Mike.
anything.
I have a question.
Was this helpful? Did anybody gain any knowledge? Yeah. Okay. I don't know the course. I'm up here, but it looks different from me here to you guys. I hope so. I think so. I want it to be. But if not, please tell me. I tell Adam. Tell me if I suck, if I'm good, bad, how I'm behaving. Because the point is to get into a loop so that you guys can learn, and then when you get out, run, implement it. Okay, great. We appreciate that feedback.
All right. So I have a question regarding your last slide. Can you go back? You said that developers are not like so focused on NOI and cap rate, but they're focused on yield, exit strategy, and sensitivity analysis. So can you like dive further into there, because I'm a little confused, and like what else they look at and what their approach is and why it's so different?
Good question. It is a confusing puzzle piece that we really need to get color around. I get it. You guys think locals are going to be just really simple terms. Locals are going to be the most challenging when it comes to economics on a building. I might have a building that's worth $1 million, and all the locals, because if they've been in this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, just like anybody that's been in it, their pricing around that is different. They're used to numbers from 10, 20, 30 years ago still. That's why you start looking. What was your last project is one of the biggest questions I always ask, because it allows me to understand their timeline. Now, if somebody's been in the business a long time, they're going to have a different threshold. Their numbers are different. But if you're just jumping in, you're starting at that baseline number of that's what it is. So it's a different education right out the gate. So locals think they're going to require more. So if they've been in business a long time, think probably the deal is not going to be had unless they really understand this value. And that's a lower percentage from what I've seen. Some sift through and they realize it, they navigate and build year over year, decade after decade. They understand those numbers, and you guys do a great job. I love that, but others don't, I've seen as well. So I think locals, more difficult, less in terms of monetary. National yields are a little lighter. So what does 25% represent versus the 40? It means they'll pay more. It means that information means I can pay more with the national, which why years back we pivoted to go to scale, because you untap different values and you deal with people that have to deploy money for shareholder returns and advanced communities. To me, that's what I wanted to attract to, institutional level type. Instead of Johnny feeling good or bad that day, or Sally Sue. It's no, he shows up to work, him or her. We're doing business deals. You go home. It doesn't really go further than that. And that's a beautiful thing. That's the way that I practice it. So think national yield, they'll pay a little bit more. They have to do it at scale. Our sensitivity threshold, research has shown for the last decade in development, nobody will do a deal below 15%. It's just the truth. I don't see many people out here willing to take a year or 2 years worth of time to do that for nominal peanuts. Now, the marketplace, you guys all take for granted what builders do. In the middle of the winter, they're out here, they're building. You guys have a beautiful home to live in, but you have no idea actually what it took to get there, and the years and the people and the 28 different trades and everything that went there. But you sit on your couch and you love it and you throw your legs up and the world's beautiful and it's blessed. And I love that. And that's what we create, is that atmosphere. But guys, getting through that is so complex and so easy to misinterpret or misunderstand, that I say get education around it, because then if you transfer it when you are in your place and you're kicking your feet up, you are like, I knew everything about this. I just thought that was a cooler way to be. So, little rant for everybody. Sensitivity threshold, think 15%. Questions outside of that? Pretty good. Guys, what I will tell you is this. The multifamilies are going to be more prevalent right now. Over the last year, they were tough with debt rates. They're very tough. Multifamilies are coming back. If you can get yourself a 5 to a 15 unit right now for somebody that you know, your uncle, cousin, family, friend, somebody like that, and ask requesting to see if you can get a primo value on it, tell them six cap it and see what that value is, and send it their way and say, does this value seem right? If your income and expenses are accurate, this could be your value. I tempt you to do that, because if the number is more than what you thought it was and they thought it was, you have pretty accurate information right there based on what you could sell. So get out there and do that and just give it as a sample. When I first started, I would just say, hey, what do the numbers on this look like in your portfolio? And I just want to do a temporary value. I'm learning. Can I temporarily know it so I value it? And then I'd go back, hey, this is worth this. This is worth that. This is worth this. Is that right, Bruce? Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I want to buy that. So maybe you sell that. Well, 1031. Yeah, that's great. I didn't realize that you wanted to do that too. What's a 1031? Yeah, I can put the money and do that. Yeah, wow. I got 2 sales. Same thing, guys. So I want to encourage you. You have to be out there doing it. I know everyone in this room is out there doing it. So my hat's off to you guys, and I'm here in support of as well. That concludes Real Estate Rewired Live. We coming at you. Impactful, effective, and efficient. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate it. If you're liking this material, like and subscribe. Build with Bruce. We're coming at you every single week. Beyond the Builds and a Real Estate Weekly Rewired coming at you.
What's next week's episode?
Next week's episode, I don't have my computer on here. I'll come back to you with that.
All right, that's it.